The seas of Asia are restless. China's expansion in the South China Sea, U.S. forces returning to Philippine bases, and now Japan, breaking decades of military restraint, has agreed to transfer 6 Abukuma-class warships to the Philippine Navy. For Manila, it is the single largest boost to naval power in a generation. For Tokyo, it is a historic decision with echoes of a very different past. And for Beijing, it is a challenge, a message that its rise will not go unanswered. This is the story of Japan's warship gift to the Philippines, a decision that could reshape the balance of power in Asia. To understand why this deal matters, we must first look at Japan itself. Since the end of World War II, Japan has lived under a self-imposed restraint. Its constitution, drafted in the aftermath of destruction, renounced war as a means of settling disputes. The self-defense forces were built, but limited. Japan avoided exporting weapons, clinging tightly to a pacifist identity. But history does not stand still. Over the past 2 decades, China's rise has unsettled the region. Its navy has grown into the world's largest by ship count, its coast guard, the biggest anywhere, and its maritime militia swarms disputed waters, from the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea to Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. Japan, once content to stay behind the shield of American power, began to change. Step by step, Tokyo revised its defense posture, expanding its coast guard, building aircraft carriers, and signing defense agreements with allies across the Indo-Pacific. The decision to hand over 6 combat vessels to Manila is not just aid. It is proof that Japan is willing to export power in ways unthinkable just a decade ago. Why would Japan pick the Philippines as the recipient of these ships? The answer lies in geography and vulnerability. The Philippines sits at the very heart of Asia's maritime crossroads. To the north, the Bushy Channel, one of the most vital sea lanes in the Indo-Pacific, connecting the South China Sea with the Pacific Ocean. To the west, the Spratly Islands and Scarborough Shoal, flashpoints where Philippine patrol boats clash with Chinese ships. For years, the Philippine Navy was woefully under-equipped. Many of its ships were relics, aging vessels donated decades ago, some even dating back to World War II. Against China's advanced destroyers and Coast Guard fleets, Manila's sailors were often outnumbered, outgunned, and outpaced. Japan's transfer changes that. With 6 Abukuma-class destroyers, the Philippines can patrol more confidently, track submarines, and secure its exclusive economic zone. For Tokyo, supporting Manila isn't just generosity, it's self-interest. If the Philippines collapses under Chinese pressure, Japan's own sea lanes, carrying vital oil and trade, would be threatened. Strengthening Manila is strengthening Tokyo. The Abukuma-class destroyer escorts are not the newest ships in Japan's fleet, but they are far from obsolete. Each vessel is designed primarily for anti-submarine warfare, but they also perform surface and patrol missions. Their key systems include a 76mm Oto Malera naval gun, standard across many navies, ASROC rocket launchers capable of striking submarines at distance, torpedo tubes with advanced sonar guidance, reliable radar for air and sea surveillance, hybrid propulsion, diesel engines for efficiency, gas turbines for speed. At full speed, they can chase intruding ships or submarines. At patrol pace, they can linger in contested waters for days. While some high-end systems, like the Harpoon missiles or the failing CIWS, may be withheld or stripped before transfer, the core remains formidable. And for the Philippines, they are a quantum leap. Every warship is more than just metal. It is a message. For the Philippines, these ships say, "We are no longer defenseless." For Japan, they say, "We will not stand by as China expands." And for China, they say, "Your actions have consequences." This is the largest transfer of Japanese combat ships in modern history. It comes as Manila deepens its ties with the U.S. under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, allowing American troops access to key Philippine bases in Luzon and Palawan. Together, these moves form a triangle: American troops on Philippine soil, Japanese ships in Philippine seas, and Chinese vessels pressing closer to Philippine shores. It is a triangle of tension, and the warships are its newest symbol. In Beijing, this deal will be seen as part of a broader strategy to contain China. Already, Chinese state media warn that alliances between Washington, Tokyo, and Manila threaten regional stability. China views the South China Sea as its backyard. Despite a 2016 international ruling rejecting its sweeping claims, Beijing continues to build artificial islands, fortify reefs, and deploy Coast Guard fleets to push out rivals. Every new ship flying the Philippine flag, especially those with Japanese origins, complicates this strategy. It raises the cost of harassment, it increases the risk of confrontation, and it shows that Manila, long seen as vulnerable, now has allies ready to back it with steel. No story of Japan and the Philippines is complete without the United States. Since 1951, the Philippines and America have been bound by a mutual defense treaty. If Philippine forces are attacked in the Pacific, the U.S. is obliged to respond. Washington has renewed its focus on Manila in recent years. Bases in northern Luzon now host U.S. forces, placing them just 200 kilometers from Taiwan. Joint patrols in the South China Sea are becoming more frequent, and Japan's transfer of ships fits neatly into this alliance structure. For China, it looks like encirclement. For the U.S. and Japan, it looks like deterrence. The ships are only the beginning. For the Philippines, the real test is what happens after they arrive. Training, crews must learn to operate complex sonar, radar, and weapon systems. Maintenance. A modern fleet requires spare parts, dockyards, and skilled engineers. Integration. These ships must work seamlessly with American and Japanese forces in joint operations. If managed well, the Abukuma fleet could become the backbone of a revitalized Philippine Navy. If neglected, they risk becoming expensive pierside relics. This is not just a gift, it is a challenge. This deal is about far more than 6 ships. It is part of a wider reordering of Asia's maritime balance. For Manila, it means deterrence, confidence, and a stronger voice in disputes. For Tokyo, it means stepping into a new role as a regional security exporter. For Washington, it means proof that its allies are pulling their weight. For Beijing, it means its neighbors are no longer passive. The seas of Asia are becoming more crowded, more contested, and more dangerous. What might happen next? Analysts suggest 3 possible futures: strengthened deterrence, with Japanese ships, U.S. backing, and Philippine resolve. China scales back its aggression, calculating that the risks are too high. Escalating encounters. More ships in contested waters mean more close calls. A collision or misfire could spark a wider crisis. Symbol without substance. If Manila fails to modernize its navy around these ships, they become symbolic but limited in effect, leaving the Philippines still vulnerable. The outcome depends not just on the ships themselves, but on how Manila chooses to use them. 6 warships, on paper, a transfer of vessels, in reality, a declaration. The Philippines is no longer a bystander. Japan is no longer bound by silence. And the Indo-Pacific is no longer dominated by a single power. Every time an Abukuma-class ship sails into the South China Sea under the Philippine flag, it will carry more than sailors and weapons. It will carry history, alliances, and the weight of a region preparing for an uncertain future. The question is not whether these ships will change the balance. It is how much and how soon. Because in Asia's contested waters, steel speaks louder than words.